Sometimes the smallest actions lead to surprising results. In this quiz, you will see a situation. Your job is simple. Predict what happens next. Some answers will feel obvious. Others might completely surprise you. Let's begin. You microwave a bar of soap for 1 minute. What happens next? It expands into a huge fluffy foam. You drop a grape into a glass of sparkling water. What happens next? The grape sinks and rises again. You place a sealed plastic water bottle in the freezer overnight. What might happen next? The bottle bulges or cracks. You put raisins into a fizzy drink. What happens next? They sink and bounce up and down. You heat popcorn kernels in a sealed glass container. What happens next? Pressure builds up dangerously. You shine a flashlight through a glass of milk mixed with water. What happens to the light beam? It scatters and becomes visible. You rub a balloon on your hair and hold it near a thin stream of water. What happens next? The water bends toward the balloon. You put a metal spoon into a microwave. What may happen next? Sparks may appear. You leave a peeled apple on the counter. What happens next? It browns. You drop oil into water and shake it. What happens after a few minutes? It separates again. You place a lit candle under a glass jar. What happens next? The flame eventually goes out. You bite into a lemon. What happens to most people? Their mouth waters. You drop food coloring into still water. What happens next? It spreads slowly through the water. You place a magnet near a paperclip. What happens next? The paperclip moves toward the magnet. You step onto a banana peel on a smooth floor. What may happen next? You slip. You drop a stone into a calm pond. What happens next? Ripples spread outward. You rub your hands together very quickly. What happens next? Your hands warm up. You leave chocolate in the sun. What happens next? It melts. You crack an egg into a bowl of salt water. What happens next? It floats. You put a balloon in the freezer. What happens next? It shrinks. You drop a feather and a coin in a vacuum. What happens next? They fall at the same speed. You shine white light through a prism. What happens next? The light splits into colors. You leave bread in a damp place for many days. What happens next? Mold grows. You shake a soda can and open it immediately. What happens next? Soda sprays out. You heat a marshmallow in the microwave. What happens next? It expands dramatically. You pour hot water onto very cold glass. What might happen next? The glass cracks. You place steel wool near a flame. What happens next? It glows and burns. You open a bag of chips at high altitude. What happens next? The bag inflates. You remove all the air from a container with a ringing bell. What happens next? The bell becomes silent. You shine a laser pointer into the night sky. What happens next? The beam continues until it hits something. You squeeze orange peel near a flame. What happens next? Tiny sprays of oil can flare. You drop a heavy and light object from the same height in a vacuum. What happens next? They land together. You leave a sealed soda bottle in the freezer too long. What might happen? The bottle bursts. You put a compass next to a strong magnet. What happens next? The needle points wrong. You drop a feather and a hammer on the moon. What happens next? They fall at the same speed. How did you do? Let's check your score. 0 to 7, curious observer. 8 to 15, logical thinker. 16 to 23, sharp predictor. 24 to 30, science detective. 31 to 35, master of cause and effect. Tell us your score in the comments, and try another quiz on the channel to see if you can beat it next time.